ladies and gentlemen.
You are now tuned in to Mastering Mitzvahs. Mastering Mitzvahs. A podcast focused on creating the perfect bar and bat mitzvah celebration, offering tips, tricks, and trends to ensure an amazing event. Mastering Mitzvahs. From New Jersey's own Explosive Entertainment. Explosive Entertainment.
I know you're gonna dig this.
And here they are, your hosts, Dylan Weissman and Mike Langser.
Hey, Happy New Year, Dylan.
Happy New Year, man. I was distracted.
We haven't spoken 42 times in the last 8 days.
You know what? We actually haven't. Normally we talk a lot, but I feel like this has been a nice little break from each other. But I'm ready to get back into this.
Are you saying you needed a break from me?
Only a little bit.
Oh, well, it's respectful. I understand. So here we are. We're doing this live, episode 128. And again, we say this often, but we are going to make a promise to dive back into these podcasts much more religiously and frequently. And we're forcing ourselves to do that because today's episode is a two-parter. So that means we already know what next week's topic is. So we're doing 24 tips for planning in 2024. And we just have a feeling we're going to get way too wordy to do 24 tips in a 30-minute episode. Yep. So part one starts today.
Yeah, so these are rapid-fire tips that will help you in the event planning process, the decision-making process, day of the event, understanding the event flow. And I think that they're really digestible, easy to take in and then implement into your event planning. So I think these are great. We have 24 of them. Mike, we actually have 25 of them. We don't know how to count.
It could be a bonus tip.
A bonus tip for next week. So the point is that I'm bringing this to life here. We are bringing this to life here. And they're in no particular order. We basically word dumped into a document and figured, here are some of our favorite tips to tell families, or they're brought up by pain points that we've seen by other events that we've been a part of. So they're in no order. They're in no particular order.
No particular order. And we think we're going to, end off around 12 at this episode, but let's see how we do with time. Let's just jump right into it. Let's get right into the nuts and bolts of this podcast. Do you want to go first, Dylan, or should I?
No, I'll go first. So tip number one, in no particular order, is that party motivators and dancers are necessary. And in our belief, for the recipe of success, no less than 2, regardless of guest count. So dive into why do you think that there should be 2 motivators, regardless of guest count? If I have 50 people, or if I have 100 people, or if I have 65 kids or 25 kids, why is 2 basically the break even? 2 is the minimum.
Why? Well, the truth is that there's many moments that the MC has to step off of the dance floor. And if he or she steps off the dance floor, that leaves us with 2 dancers on the dance floor. And I said he or she because in most cases, we try to have 1 male and 1 female dancer. So, we're leaving 1 male, 1 female. The MC disappears to help coordinate something or deal with, an issue or prep for the next moment. So leaving a male and a female on stage or on the dance floor truly helps. And I say stage and dance floor because we try to mix up the dynamic too. And not just lead from the front of the room, but also lead from within the pack of the guests. So minimum 2, we normally have, a thought process in our mind that guest counts of 125 and under should be 2 dance floor dancers. Parties that are closer to that 150 count should definitely have 3. And parties that are in that 175 or greater should be 4 or more dancers.
Yeah. So think about it this way. The more touch points you have from your message of having a great party, the better off you are. You wouldn't leave 65 kids in a classroom with only 1 teacher. You would want 2 or 3. So from our perspective, the MC does not count in that amount. The MC's responsibilities go way beyond just entertaining kids, at least really good MCs and high quality MCs. Figure the minute we have to start prepping grand entrances or candle lightings, that's one mindset that's away from the center of the dance floor. And I think that we need at least 2 bodies to help control that and, elevate those experiences. So just in the example that we just used, let's say we're doing a grand entrance and your bat mitzvah girl wants to be escorted in by one of the dancers. Well, if I pull that dancer off the dance floor, who is in charge there? Because the MC is prepping it, but who is on the dance floor representing that message? So it's important because then you're able to divide and conquer.
Yeah, I'd like to move on, but I want to leave a great analogy that our good friend Brett Lavender, who's a fantastic MC, teaches. And he says a great MC is going to get a plate, the analogy of a plate on your finger spinning or a basketball spinning. He could get that basketball spinning, but it's the dancer's job to keep that basketball or plate spinning, the whole time. So
Right.
I really love that analogy, and I think it's great for our first of many tips that we're giving today.
Yeah. All right. So here we go with number 2. You can start this one off.
Number 2, serve kids first. Serving kids first allows the opportunity for adults dance set. So we're talking about food time at the reception. Whether your party is a lunch party or a dinner party, day or night, whether you're doing buffet or served meals, we've learned through the years and we prefer to see the kids served first. That gets them off of the dance floor first, leaving the adults out on the dance floor. And then we can play adults geared music to keep the adults happy, motivated, and engaged while the kids are kind of disengaged. And that's done intentionally. Like, even when the kid says, I really don't want any old music or I don't want any of my mom and dad's music, kids are busy eating and at the photo booth at this time. We could focus the next 15, 20 minutes on 80s, 90s, 2000s music, keep the adults happy and engaged, and then send them to their seats. And Dylan, do you have any afterthoughts on that, on what happens when the kids finish first?
Well, I really like the idea of staggered meal times. I think, look, one of the things that I really, really like about bar and bat mitzvah execution is when you could always have something going on the dance floor. So if I can get the kids to eat and the adults' food's not plated yet, I now have some time with the adults. And by the time the kids are done eating, the adults are probably tired. So now I can put them down for their food and bring the kids out for a game or a contest that helps re-energize that dance floor. Because in reality, if you were to do a Coke Pepsi game or a Kahoot game or something that's large format that takes a lot of space, it now allows the adults to not feel like they're being exiled for that one reason.
Yep, perfectly. All right, let's move on. Number 3.
All right, so this one is having dynamic themes allows for cohesiveness throughout the planning process. So the branding and the production of the party all stems from the theming. If you have a really great theme, it becomes an immersive quality about your event, and we're not guessing as to how to bring to life something special. I think that the trend of Club Ben or Club Rachel or something like that, like nightclub themed events, doesn't go far enough. And I actually think that it's a dying breed and hurts you. Where if you could take it one step further, like Miami nightclub, or, not just a winter wonderland, but a Candyland winter wonderland, you add a couple more descriptive words to it, allows for all of the planning, all of the coordination to be a lot more geared and focused to your unique style, as opposed to it guessing or falling apart at the last minute.
Yeah. So often I say to a family, do you have a theme in mind? And if they say no, it doesn't give me a springboard. If they say yes, it's basketball. Great. Let's talk about things that we can do basketball related, games that we could play. How can we do a unique grand entrance? But if you give us nothing to work off of, the theme is my kid's name. That's a lot harder to play off of.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's keep moving. This is your one.
Okay. Don't always trust installed sound or lighting, and I should add, or TVs at venues. Some venues do this very well, and when they say, hey, we have screens, we have lights, we have TVs, that's a great cost savings for you and a great reason to book a venue. A lot of nightclub-like spaces are perfect for this because that's what they're built for. They have a lighting system that far exceeds anything that a DJ would typically bring. And same thing with sound. But so often we run into a frustrating point where a venue, we won't mention names today, but let's just say some country clubs, some temples, some hotels install lights, and they say to their clients, hey, we got this great light show. You don't need to get it from your DJ, and we're going to save you money. Well, that sounds great in theory, but great lights that aren't actually ran properly or installed properly or programmed properly are worthless. And I often use the analogy, it's like buying a Ferrari but driving 25 miles an hour. What's the point? You have so much capability, but just, you're throttled back too much, and it really becomes the norm. And often we find ourselves as entertainers at events, and the lights. I can think of a party recently, like it was dinner time, and the lights were still moving fast and flashing and strobing, and it was obnoxious, but we had no control over it, and nobody was paying any attention from the venue.
Yeah. And think about it this way, like, we know what music is being played. We know the energy that we're going for. Giving us, the entertainment company, control over the lighting then becomes one cohesive, delivery, as opposed to it being segmented between a venue guessing what type of lighting is going to happen during X number of songs. So, make sure you do your due diligence when it comes to
Let me share a
party
tip.
install.
Here's the tip. If you are booking your party at a venue that has installed lighting, sound, or video, ask the salesperson who controls it and is somebody dedicated to that. If the answer is yes, we have an on-site lighting tech and that person's job is nothing but controlling the lights, then I could pretty much assure you you're in good hands. If they say, oh, well, I am the manager and I will control it, I assure you the manager has 25 more important things to do than figure out what color lights to be pressing.
Right. Okay. We have a whole podcast topic on this, but let's move real fast into number 5. Too much swag can detract from dancing. We've gone over this in nauseum at this point, and we're still seeing it. I know your kid loves their brand and their theming and it's a proud thing for them. But if you have 100 kids and 500 pieces of things to give away, I'm telling you right now, it's going to no longer be a dance party. It's going to be more of a shopping thing. It's going to end up being more of like, how much stuff can this child get? And it ends up taking away from the overall goal of your event.
Yeah, let's not beat that one up over any further. I think you described it perfectly.
So thinking about distractions, moving on to number 6 here.
Game rentals. This is a hot topic. Air hockey, foosball, ping pong, virtual reality. There's so many games that are popular now to be rented for parties. Clients often say, are they a distraction? Or they say, I'm spending so much money on it, I don't want it just for cocktail hour. The rebuttal, if that's the right word, is envision your party. What do you want? Do you want kids playing games during the reception? Or do you find that as a distraction? And there is no right or wrong answer here. You just have to know what style party you want.
Sure.
If you say, I really want the adults to dance a lot, I'm totally cool. It's a boys' party and I want the boys just playing games. Great. Let's load up the backside of the ballroom with all sorts of games and activities for the boys to play. And the DJ will have the time of their life focusing on the adults.
That's right.
But if you say, I really want the kids to dance the whole time, the more distractions, whether it's swag or games or activities like airbrushed hats and t-shirts, all of those things will take people off of the dance floor.
Yep. So just set your expectation. If you're going to have a bunch of game rentals and you want them to be used, that means that people aren't going to be on your dance floor. So what is the important moment there? And we're happy to help guide you in that process, but just just set your expectation. If you're gonna have a lot of games, there's gonna be people playing them. That's good. All right, let's keep going here. Number 7. This is a really, really big one, and it's a pretty simple one, but it seems to be overlooked a lot. Book a venue that has bar and bat mitzvah experience. If you don't, it's a guessing game. You either need to bring in a very, very strong coordinator or consider a different venue, because weddings and banquet facility or weddings and banquets in general are not the same. They do not have the same timeline. The food service is different. The way you allocate the resources is different. And if you don't get it right, your whole party depends on that timeline and that flow. We have podcasts on this in probably 3 different ways. But if you book a venue that has bar and bat mitzvah experience, you'll be in a lot better shape than trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Good example. We recently did a bar mitzvah at a venue. that was frustrated to hear that we were bringing in stages, and they said, we don't want kids dancing on stages. What if they fall? And we said our response is we do 5 bar mitzvahs a week with stages, and kids don't fall. Like it's a normal thing. Kids dance on stages at parties. Like how can you not allow that? And who's going to bear that bad news to the family and say this is not allowed?
Right.
And also,
Right.
Dylan, I think the attitude that you get from the wait staff, the management, and the bartenders is very different when they are used to bar and bat mitzvahs versus when that's an anomaly and like they're overwhelmed by the idiosyncrasies of just different age, guests.
That's exactly right. I mean, like you need to be prepared to have, you know, 50 to 70 13-year-olds in your facility. That also means that you need to know how to handle the security side of things. You need to know how to handle the bathroom side of things. Like there's a lot that goes into it. So I really think that it's important for you as a client, you as a family to make a decision that's best for you and make sure you're booking it with experience there.
So I'm going to circle back to what you said earlier and reiterate it. If you book a venue without bar bat mitzvah experience, bring in a great coordinator from your entertainment company. It's one of the things we pride ourselves in is having an on-site coordinator that keeps the timeline in the flow, right? And they are the liaison between the vendors, or hire a great event planner. And that's their job.
Yeah.
And it should be an event planner that stays on site. A lot of event planners are, they call themselves event planners, but sometimes they're decorators.
Yeah, they're more like decorators. Yeah, they set up and
An
leave.
event planner should be there the day of, from start to finish, to make sure that every ounce of what your expectations happen, on time.
That's right. All right, number 8.
Number 8, montages. One of my favorite points because I make most of them. Montages should have no more than 100 photos, making or yielding a total of a 7 or 8 minute video. And that's done with intent. Most people don't want to sit and watch a video that's longer than 7 or 8 minutes. Guests or clients, it's really hard to narrow 13 years into 10 pictures.
I know.
Or to 100 pictures. Sorry, we know that. We also know that nowadays everybody has videos on their iPhone. So, yes, it's very fun to include video clips. And I love a dynamic montage that has video in it. But narrow that down. I mean, if you submit us 3 or 4 videos and they're 30 seconds to a minute long each, that adds a lot of time, or it takes up a lot of your 7 or 8 minutes. Like if you do that, you might only have 50 photos in your montage. So just think effectively on what you want the montage to look and feel like.
Yeah, it's media overload. We have this is a problem that's getting worse and worse as the majority of these kids were born in a time where we had access to cameras quickly, like on a phone. So there's more photos than you've ever imagined, and narrowing it down is so challenging. But know that 100 photos will yield you that really sweet spot of 7 to 8 minutes where it's not moving too fast, where you feel like you can't focus, but it's not moving too slow where it's going to get boring or repetitive. I think that the upper echelon of that type of montage is 150 photos, and that gets you like 9 to 11 minutes. And like that's pretty much
correctly, and not with too much video content. It's a funny thing, Dylan. So you and I are about 15 years apart. I bet if I asked my parents to go back into our photo archives of my first year of life, I don't know, there might be only 20 pictures that exist of my first year of life.
right.
And then look at your first year. Maybe I'm just guessing. Maybe there's 100 or 200, but you have 2 young kids at home. I bet you have 100 pictures just from last week of each.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I was gonna jump in there and say, like, I'm pretty sure, my son is, 2.5 months old, and I'm pretty sure I have 200 photos of him just on my phone, let alone my wife's. So, it's just information overload there, and you got to narrow it down. If you want a successful montage, we recommend 100 photos. That'll get you about 7 to 8 minutes.
I actually want to share a tip of something that I keep saying I need to do myself, and I haven't done. And Dylan, I hope this is something you do. Archive your pictures, like literally from the day that your child is born, and have a folder for year 1, year 2, year 3. And then in each of those folders, have a best of. So by the time that your montage planning comes along, you're not sorting through 50,000 pictures. I believe my phone right now has 29,000 photos on it. Like to sort through that and find,
It's overwhelming. That's where people normally stop.
yeah. So if you could just go back and say, I already did this in year one, here's my favorite 5 photos, you've got 90% of your efforts already done for you.
That's exactly right. All right, let's move on. Tip number 9 of 24. When it comes to photo booths, you want to talk to the provider of the photo station. Is this going to be a DSLR based photo booth or an iPad based photo booth? And the reason you want to ask that is because it changes the quality of your deliverable, the quality of the photo that you're going to get at the end. In our opinions, a DSLR style photo booth is going to get you leaps and bounds better photo quality. There are some really great iPad based systems out there, but in reality, you're paying for a service that should differentiate from your phone. And these kids will be able to take all the selfies in the world. But if you're going to pay 8, 9, 10, $8, $9, $1,000, $1,200 for a photo station, let's make sure it differentiates from what you already have available to you for free. So in our case, we almost never send out an iPad photo booth unless it was called for a more simplistic style event. But in reality, a DSLR photo booth just goes so much further.
I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Great. All right, your turn.
All right, tip number 10 of today's podcast. Timelines. The timeline of the event for the day should be made by the vendor involved who knows bar and bat mitzvahs the best and knows your family's vision most vividly. That's a lot to unpack and it's a lot to say. So let's just divide that out. If you're booking a bar bat mitzvah at a typical venue, it might be, again, country club, hotel, temple, and you have hired an event planner, and you have a DJ, and you have a photographer, all of these different people have their own vision on what the right timeline is. And they might have internal motivations on why they dictate what they dictate. It might be because they want to get the food served quickly so they could clean up quickly and, get out quickly. Or the photographer might have reasons why he or she want to get pictures done at a certain time because of sunlight, or maybe they're not staying to the very end of the party and they want to be done by 9, even though your party runs to 11. There's a lot of different people that have different inputs, is the point that I'm making. Who's going to create the right timeline? And it's probably not you, the family member who's never done this before. The answer is that the vendor that you're working with that has the most experience and knows your vision the most should create the timeline. Then the big caveat is that timeline should be shared amongst all of the other vendors. And it should say, this is what we and the family agreed upon. Are you okay with this?
Mm-hmm.
There might be some very good, valid reasons why the photographer or the caterer says, hey, I need you to adjust something a little bit one way or another. But ultimately, your vision needs to be in there. And things like, do you plan on drinking heavily and you want to get all the formalities done early? That's a topic that needs to be discussed. And if so, you push those things earlier. Or no, I want to pace them out and I want to get a great dance set in earlier. That, all of that dictates what a timeline is. And maybe this almost echoes topic number 4 that we already, or topic number, I don't know what number it was. We talked about the venue knowing bar and bat mitzvahs. A great venue that does bar and bat mitzvahs can dictate the timeline and do a great job. But in most cases, we as entertainers, we try to provide the timeline.
Yeah, I agree. Especially because, as an MC, I'm going to be out there executing it. It's going to be really hard to execute someone else's timeline if it already goes against some of the ideas that we had discussed for your event. So it should be created ahead of time. It should be created by the person who understands your vision the most. And then most importantly, it should be approved by everyone at that point.
Yep.
All right, cool. Book a venue with enough space. So, it's really, really funny, but a lot of time, and also book a venue that doesn't have too much space. If you book a cavernous venue and you only have 100 guests, that affects your vibe. It affects your mentality. It affects your energy. So, I don't know if you remember from your catering days, but do you remember a metric of this is the size dance floor for this group?
No, there's there are metrics that exist, but I don't believe in them because there's so many other factors of, are you bringing in lounge furniture? What's the line of sight? Like sometimes some venues will boast, we have a 6,000 square foot ballroom, but part of that is like tucked in a corner and they can't see the stage. So I don't think that there's an accurate metric that exists. I think you walk in, you tour, you need to see the room layout, and somebody needs to show you a drawn map and said, this is where up to 80 kids can sit, and this is where 200 adults can sit, and this is the size dance floor that's left over. And by the way, do you have games? Do you want air hockey and foosball? Are you doing this giant immersive photo booth? Like I've seen pictures on social recently of people cramming these massive photo booths in spaces that they just frankly don't fit.
Right.
And that's the purpose of tip 11 here.
Yeah. I mean, I think that just creating a floor plan will give you at least expectation. But I just think that, if you know that you're going to want some flexibility, you need a little bit of a bigger space, but also you need to understand there are venues out there that have massive, massive, massive dance floors where your 150 person guest count will get lost and you'll lose a lot of that energy because of it. So find ways to work that.
One of our associates right now is working on an event that I literally feel like we're trying to put everything into this room with a shoehorn. And, we're saying it won't fit. And the family's saying, make it fit. And it's just geometry at this point. It's not it just physically won't fit based on square footage. So it's a poor choice of venue.
Yeah, I mean, to elaborate, even just a little bit further, there are metrics for a lot of catering halls where it's like, I need 6 feet of clearance between tables for proper service. There is fire code situations where it's like a 20 by 20 dance floor really shouldn't house more than 200 guests. I don't know, making it up. I don't actually know, but the point is that there are metrics that end up being served. So you should ask, hey, what does this room typically hold? And let them give you the feedback on
it. And see a map, see it drawn out. Too many places. I can think of a place that we're at often that, swears they could hold 250 plus people. I think it's ideal for half of that. So see it in person and know in advance what you want.
Yep.
Games, lounge furniture, all of that plays a big factor.
Yep. All right, last tip in this part 1 of 2. And this is yours.
All right. Tip 12 is to save and print multiple copies of your speeches. They should live on more than one phone and more than one physical printed copy should exist. This is something I learned from you, Dylan. When a family makes their own candle lighting or they have their own speeches, handwritten, send it to your DJ in advance and have them bring it. Print it out and drop it off at the venue in advance when you drop off other things, whatever it is, maybe your swag or, your party favors or centerpieces. Keep an envelope in there that says, speeches, and it's a manila envelope. Bring a copy with you or put it in the glove compartment of the car that you're driving to the party and save it on your phone and email or text it to another family member. This is like the backup of the backup of the backup. I may have shared this story. I may not have. But my close friend, his wedding was a destination wedding. And the father of the groom had handed me a physical copy of the speech and said, hey, can you hold on to this? I know I don't need it for a couple hours. And truth is, I actually put it down and I misplaced it. It was the one and only copy of this speech that existed. And I learned the lesson, Dylan. I heard you yelling in my ears, dude, make sure there's backup. Now, this dad didn't make a backup. We eventually found it, long story short. But there was major panic and hysteria going because he said, I poured my heart and soul into writing this speech and it doesn't exist anywhere else. So make sure that, you lose your phone, no problem. Somebody else has it. You print it out copy that you put in your car, doesn't exist any longer. The venue has it. There should be a backup to a backup to a backup.
Well, there's a lot of reasons why I made that a habit. I know that's something that I brought to Explosive, where we want printed copies of everything. The most important reason outside of backup is now we get to follow along and see how we can go and pick up where you left off. By understanding how your candle lighting is ending, by understanding how your speech is ending, we can then bring you back into the energy you're looking for without, even missing a beat. I know what the last few words of your candlelighting looks like, so I play the song at the right time. All of those things are really, really important. And I mean, outside of the most important, which is I now have a copy for you. If you send it to me as your entertainer, I'm going to be able to hand it to you that day. And you won't have to go looking for the one folder you left somewhere in like a bridal suite somewhere else. Like, I'm going to give it to you. It'll be right there for you. You don't have to go looking for it. So I really like that tip. I think it's really important. Print a bunch of them, save them, give them to a bunch of people, save it on your phone. Your phone's your absolute last backup. It looks better in photos when you're reading from a paper, not your phone. And I think your eyes will thank you as well. So there you have it.
Yeah, there you go. 12 of 24 tips that we're sharing as we kick off 2024. And while this is geared towards bar and bat mitzvahs, most everything we just discussed is a good tip for any type of event. Just, so use it, embrace the information that we're passing on. And we say this all the time, but like, share, and comment. You help our algorithm. We want to make sure that these podcasts are helpful and that people are enjoying them.
Awesome. Well, happy
That's the very last
2024.
thing we have to say. We have to shout out our showcase.
Oh, right, Mike.
February 11th, the Super Bowl showcase. We probably shouldn't talk about teams after a big loss on your green colored shirt there yesterday.
I don't want to talk about it.
But the big game is coming up February 11th, and we always started off with the kickoff of our season, our Super Bowl showcase. That's going to be at Temple B'nai Tikva, which is on Finnegan's Lane in North Brunswick. It is from noon to 3 p.m., and we really suggest getting there right at noon as the doors open. There's going to be some live entertainment as soon as you walk in. There's going to be games, activities, photo booths, tons of vendors on hand, menu tasting from our very good friends at Classical Caterers. Before you know it, come 1:32, we're doing our live performance, and it's a mini mock mitzvah. We try to take what you would expect in a 4 or 5 hour mitzvah. We condense it into 30 minutes. And you get to see all of our MCs perform. You get to see our dancers. It's such an amazing opportunity. I don't care if you're already booked or not booked. It's a great opportunity to really tie things in. And for those of you that are watching this physical podcast, you'll notice that Dylan is not the world's greatest speller or typer.
Oh my God, I missed the R.
He called it a Super Bowl, not a Super Bowl.
Well,
but
I didn't know we were talking about that right now. It wasn't a part of our pre.
We're not being judged on our typing abilities. We're being judged on our entertainment abilities.
There.
So as always, thanks for tuning in. We hope to see you at Super Bowl Showcase. Register online in advance at superbowlshowcase.com. There's a ton of info there. If you have any questions, hit us up.
All right. Happy 2024. We'll see you guys next time.